Hi guys, welcome to the second video of this series. As I said previously, today we are going to be working on the engine. The first thing we are going to do is take off the valve cover. Nope. Okay, so now that all the bolts are out, we can take off the valve cover and see what the damage is. If it doesn't come loose easily, you can always use a hammer, give it some taps, and then it should come off. The first thing I notice is that they use liquid gaskets, so that's one clue that someone has been working on this engine. All in all, the camshafts look pretty well. So now the next thing we are going to do is loosen up the chain tensioner, so we can take off this chain, take out the camshafts, and then release the head. So now that we've taken out the chain tensioner, we can take out the camshafts by releasing all these bolts. And then we can move it around since the chain is now somewhat loose. And then you can start taking out the head. Okay, so before we take the camshafts entirely out, it's a good idea to mark them which one is the inlet and the outlet camshaft. Also the position where they're in and the position of each one of these heads. Since they're adjusted to the camshafts itself, it's important that the wear and tear is the same all around. So make sure you put them in the same exact spot when you assemble the engine. Okay, so now that the caps are off, we can take out the camshaft. There is always a marking of what is TDC, so top dead center. And in this case, you can see on this lobe that there is a small indentation in both. If you line it up with your flywheel and everything is at top, you know you're at top dead center, which is actually 0.0. So from there on out you can start adjusting it. At 0.0 your valves are closed, your pistons are all the way up top, which means top dead center. And from there on you can make sure everything is aligned correctly, so if the engine starts turning, everything runs smoothly and nothing collides with each other. So now we are taking out the camshafts. Instead of marking these, you can see exactly the difference between the two. So the one with gearing in it is the outlet exhaust. So now we can take them out. And in fact, just this chain we can drop down, because when we are removing the cylinder heads, we can take it out, or we can fish it out. If you want and make your life easier, you can always just put a screwdriver in the middle, so you don't have to start fishing later on. Now we can remove all these bolts. There's about 12 of them, but you don't release them randomly. As you know, when you tension the head, you do it in a specific order so the head doesn't get warped. The same goes for when you're releasing it. When you are tensioning it, you're always working from the middle to the far out. Now we are going to do reverse, and we're going to release the outsides first and then work our way to the middle. So let's do that now. Okay, so after hours and hours of struggling, we finally got the head off, and it was caked on of all the dirt. As you can see, there was no way of rescuing this engine, or at least the top half. What I'm going to do is I'm going to strip the bottom of the engine, so I can keep all the spare parts like the ignition stator, the starter engine, the alternator, the clutch basket perhaps. Then I'm either going to sell it for pieces or use it as a boat anchor. Since there's no way of saving the top of this engine, I'm going to source a new one, or a used one. I already have carburetors for a 750cc, this being a 650cc engine. So I'm going to buy a 750cc engine so we can pair it up with the carburetors and don't have to do any extra adjusting. So in the next video you will see us picking up the new engine and pairing it with the carburetors. Alright, so it's actually a couple of weeks later, but I did get a new engine. And when I say new, it's not really new, but it's another one. So it's really hard to find a 650 engine, but after looking for a while I found one. All the others were 750s and I had to order a lot of new parts to make it work. So after driving 600 kilometers to find this engine, I went and collected it and we got it home. It has, or it should have, 37,000 kilometers and it looks in reasonably good condition compared to the other engine. The covers are all unpainted, so we can polish them and make them shine again. The starter I took off the old engine so we can reuse that. It even came with some carburetor boots, but we will be replacing them since they are all cracked. I have some new ones which I ordered, so that won't be a problem. I will show you how I clean up this engine, install the carburetors and the starter engine, and then I will have some surprises. Okay, so now that I've cleaned these parts, I'm going to install the new boots, and luckily for me they've indicated whether it's the right one or left one, so it's easy to put them on the parts. If yours doesn't have it, always look at the vacuum tube, it should always point up. Now that the new boots are on, we can almost continue to install the carburetors. The last thing we need to do is take off the clamps that will hold the carburetor in place and place them on the new boots. As well as these vacuum tubes. One has a vacuum tube, the others have vacuum blocking tubes. So make sure, if possible, you reuse them, and if you can't, snip them off and put them into place. The others have these little tubes which you can just take off, hopefully. There you go. And put them on the new boots, and you do that for all four. Okay, so now that the boots are on, we are going to be installing the carburetors, but only temporarily. I just want to block off every exit and opening so we can clean the entire engine, and in a future episode we will be rebuilding these carburetors. Before you put them on, I always like to use some silicone spray just so it slides in easy, because if the rubber is dry and the metal is cold, it won't slide in easy. Okay, so I put on the carburetors, that went pretty easy. I've put on these air filters just to block off the entrances. I only have 3 on the 4 carburetor bike, but I put in some cloth so no debris will get in there. As you can see, the rest of the engine is pretty dirty, but it should get clean quite easily. So I've got some steel wool, some WD-40 and some brake cleaner, and this should all help to make this engine shine again. Okay, so I've cleaned up the engine. I even used some paint, some heat resistance, to make the black parts black again and the silver parts nice and shiny silver. Carburetors, I didn't do anything to them since we are going to be rebuilding them and ultrasonic cleaning them. The valve covers as well, those are going to the powder coating, so I didn't touch it. All these side covers, I sanded them a little bit, but they are getting polished, so they're nice and shiny. Perhaps even with some color of the bike in it as well. I won't be installing the engine since we have a lot of framework to do, but in the beginning or halfway this video I promised you some surprises, so we are going to check them out right now. Okay, so like I said, I have a couple surprises and there's a bunch. So if you look at the bike, I've decided the color scheme. I only have matte black. I'm going to paint or powder coat the frame, the rear swing arm and the forks in gunmetal gray. And I'm going for a beige ivory white color on the tank and fenders. These side covers, I don't really like them since they don't really close everything up, so I'm going to change those or make them myself. And then we have the seat, which is a really nice brown, and in one of the next episodes we are going to be modifying the frame to put in a frame hoop so the seat fits in nicely and we can integrate the tail light into it. So this will be our seat, this will be our hoop. What I have next is a clutch cable since we are running a new engine, or half new. A carburetor rebuild kit since we don't know what happened to the other set. So it's always good to change every gasket and jet. So you have a good base to start on. What else do we have? Clip-ons. I think these will go really nice on the bike. If you check them out, I think it will be a perfect look. You can have a steering without these. If you look, and this brown against the beige, I think will go really well. What else do we have? We have an engine, we have a bike, we also need something to control both. So I got new clutch and brake handles. Should go on really nicely. As you can see, there's still some space on the handlebars. I ordered new controls for the lights, but they haven't arrived yet. So that's why it seems so long, but you really need to bridge this gap. Of course, for the other side, we have a brake. Just figure this one out. So here on the right side, we of course have the brake caliper. If we're going to brake and go, you also need something to control the throttle. So I've got these nice black CNC controls, which will go on against the light controls that haven't arrived yet. And of course, on the end we have a nice black control. Now if that doesn't look sexy, I don't know what does. So let's put them on the bike and see how it looks. Woo. So it should look something like this. And of course here in the front we also put on a new headlight stays. So if you see how nice and machined, CNC machined this looks. We also have the headlight. It's a nice LED headlight. I've gone with an amber ring and some LED highs and lows. I think will look really nice compared to what was on the bike before. And last but not least, we also have a speedometer. I've rented an all black speedometer with an analog RPM meter and a digital speedometer. All lights, indicators, neutral switch are all in this RPM meter. So we'll have to fabricate a bracket for this as well, but it will sit on the center. The ignition switch will be removed and tucked under the seat, so this all stays clean. So this will be all for this episode. I wish I could have done more with the engine, but as you'll see in the next episode, we'll be working on the frame a whole lot more, since you have to adjust the subframe, and then you'll understand why the engine isn't in. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you really like the colors. If you have any ideas, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.